All right, everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Firepunk Fridays. I'm learning more and more that these things roll around really quick. A week is very short when you have to sit down every week. Well, I don't have to. I enjoy doing it, but definitely sneaks up on me every week, and it definitely keeps you on your toes coming up with new material and people to talk to. But this week we are sitting down with Dibbles and Matt Williamson, I guess I should say. And yeah, we're just going to talk about Dibbles' story and how he came to be with Firepunk and all kinds of good stuff. So we might talk food, we might talk trucks, we might talk transmissions, I'm not sure. But we'll kind of see where it goes. But let's start out with a little bit of shop talk. Just go around what we're doing at the shop. What do you guys have going on in the trans room this week? Is anything kind of out of the ordinary, or I don't know, any different projects you're working on or anything?
Nothing too crazy. Kicking butt back there, getting stuff, trying to get caught up. A couple repairs back there we've been dealing with. Rodrigo's 68. That thing's been kind of a nightmare. It came back a few times with issues, but I think we got it figured out now. There was some pump gear galling that we didn't catch the first time.
Gotcha.
I think that's going to take care of it. So.
Yeah. The 68s can be interesting just when we feel like you have a really good handle on it. You run into things occasionally where it's kind of like, man, it just kind of makes you pull your hair out sometimes. Right. But they're definitely a little bit of a different creature, and we've been pretty hesitant and really pushing them too much just because we don't want the headache. You don't want the headache of having random failures. So trying to get as good a grasp on everything as we can. And so sometimes it's not really as much that we can't do it. It's just that we feel like we want to make sure that we're ready to do it in the volume that we need to do it in and be able to service everything the way we need to and stuff. So definitely working on getting more 68 RFE stuff up and running. But seems like every time we get ready to ramp that up, the 48s really start coming in hard again. And then it's like, you're doing everything you can to keep up with that. And kind of makes that a little bit interesting sometimes. But as far as the rest of the shop, we've got Andrew Benford's truck on the dyno today. That's a Thummins truck that we've worked on a good bit, and it's a 12 valve with a twin turbo setup, and we just got done adding wastegates to it and making a few other upgrades. So they're doing some dyno stuff on that today. Yesterday we had a big day at the fab shop. All in all, a good day, but a really long day. We got Byron Klein's truck wrapped up and out of here. That's been a project that we've been working on for quite a while. And then he wanted to make Diesel Truck Wars this coming weekend. So he was able to come in yesterday, and we were able to spend a good bit of the day on the dyno. Had a good day on the dyno, ended up making, I believe, like 1360 on fuel. And I think the final number we got was about 1860 on nitrous. So we had a Garrett 88 millimeter turbo on that, and we just kind of felt like we were getting to where drive pressure was high enough that we decided we're going to quit pushing for now, that he wants to go drag racing and at least get a foundation under him before we push it too much harder. So we'll probably have a revisit of that truck here in the next month or two, just have a few little odds and ends and stuff to fix up. But it was really good to get that thing on the dyno. Really, we just had a few tiny little hiccups, but engine-wise, like, that thing was a beast yesterday. Everything seemed flawless, and hopefully they can get some testing in and have fun at Truck Wars this weekend. So now we're focused in on getting Justin Ziegler's on the dyno and getting some testing done with it in the next week. The goal was to go testing tomorrow, but now it looks like there's a 80% chance of rain. So that kind of makes us decide that it's not worth dragging the truck 2 hours to go maybe get a few passes in and watch it rain and all that stuff. So we're going to have to put that off for a few days, and we'll settle for getting started on the dyno and going from there. And then Robbie Garcia dropped his truck off yesterday as well. So we've got turbos to do for it, bedsides to mount, weight box to build for it, and then finishing up some tuning and electronic stuff. He just did an 849 swap and have to get that thing ready for UCC. So should be a lot of fun. Robbie is one of those guys that he's going to have fun at UCC, whether his truck does well or not. And
sure.
he's a fun guy to be around. Always has a smile on his face, and I'm not sure that he ever runs out of energy. So yeah, that kind of wraps up what we're doing around the shop. So we'll get into the fun of talking about Dibbles. So why don't we start with where does Dibbles comes from? How did that get started? Why don't we just call you Matt Williamson?
Well, when I first started working here, Matt Kaufman was in the trans room. And hearing Matt, you don't know who you're talking to. And then not too long after I was working there, a few months later, Matt Sensnig got hired in the trans room. So then we had 3 Matts in there.
Yeah.
You just call for Matt, we all say what, know. So Kaufman went to being called Kaufman, and Sensnig was called Sensnig, and everyone started calling me Dibbles. And the Dibbles came from country music artist Earl Dibbles Jr.
Right.
I've seen him in concert probably 5-6 times. And people started calling me Dibbles. So I mean,
it definitely is one of those things that just straight up stuck.
It happened and it didn't go away. And then the found Dibbles came around.
Yeah.
Anytime someone saw a black cloud, it was found Dibbles. So
that's funny. So yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I was thinking about how long you've been working here. You said, what, 2016?
14.
Or 2014. Okay, so yeah. Turns out me and Dibbles are about as Dibbles and myself, I don't know, I'm not great at grammar.
Me neither.
Are about as OG as it gets around here. So aside from Levon, I think we're the longest tenured workers here. So if 2014, that makes 8 years for you, and I've got 10 years coming up in August. So absolutely crazy to think that it's been that long.
I remember moving the shop over here. I helped, that was back in 13 though, October of 13?
I want to say that was 12, because I think it was like October of 2012 that we first started operating as an LLC.
Okay.
If I remember right. So, but yeah, it's been a hot minute. So I first remember Dibbles before the Firepunk days. We would hang out up at Brandon Miller's house quite a bit doing, I don't know, anything a motorhead might do, I guess. And at that point, you were a pretty young chap. I don't know how old, but you were a neighbor to Brandon, and you and a couple of your friends would, you knew that we often occupied the garage late at night, or that Brandon was also a creature of the night and would probably not sleep till the sun was almost coming up. And it wasn't uncommon to hear you guys knocking on the windows or on the doors. And I think at first it was maybe kind of you guys were bored and we're going to see what kind of, reaction we can get.
Yep.
And then pretty soon you discovered that, hey, he's going to tell us to come on in and hang out and whatever. So you'd come around with your friends and hang out and whatever. So
the ongoing joke for the longest time was we thought y'all were a chop shop. We'd see plasma cutters and welders going in the middle of the night, and we're like, what are these guys doing?
Right.
Cutting trucks up or what?
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy. And then you quickly discovered that you and Brandon have food in common.
Yeah.
So I think there was a good bit of cooking and at least talking about cooking. I'm not sure. Yeah.
For sure.
But so that's how we first got to know you. And then, I don't know, after school, what did you do job-wise? You work at the pizza shop right away? What else? What all have you done?
I started, first job, I was doing some part-time stuff, doing catering for Heflin's Catering. And, and then I ended up working at Scott's in the mailroom for a summer. And then that winter, I got hired on at the pizza shop. Okay. And then I worked there almost 5 years.
Okay.
And then, then came here.
Yeah, I remember going into the pizza shop, and we'd go in there for lunch occasionally. That was back in the day when we would take as long lunches as we would want. And
I just remember handing all of you them stacks of free appetizer coupons.
Yeah, and I also remember, there would be days we would be like, make us a cool pizza. And you'd come up with, just make something up. What was that one that we ended up kind of doing quite a bit of?
The redneck?
The redneck.
Yeah, stuffed crust redneck.
Yeah. And that was that thing will fill you straight up.
You can't eat more than 1 or 2 pieces of that.
Yeah, what all was on the redneck? I don't.
So it started out as the redneck, and then it went to the stuffed crust redneck, and then it went to the Firepunk pizza. And what it was just a standard. You'd take a larger dough, so you had overhang on the crust. And you'd stuff the crust with barbecued pulled pork, bacon, and cheese. Stuff that in the crust, and then put pizza sauce down. And then I made a chipotle lime barbecue sauce.
Okay.
That you'd put down in the sauce too, mix it up, and then cheese, pepperoni, grilled chicken, and bacon, and then cheese on top. Top it with some more of that barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Bake in the oven.
Yeah,
You
it
got
was
like
good.
a best of both worlds with pizza and stromboli.
Right. It was like a pizza wrapped in a stromboli or whatever. So yeah, it was good stuff. So definitely have good memories of that. But so yeah, then I don't know how'd we get you away from the pizza shop, I guess.
It comes down to Levon's quad cab.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. I remember it was a night you guys were all up at Brandon's. And I had rode by on my bicycle, and saw you guys all standing out there. And we were talking and started talking to Levon about the quad cab. And he, that was back when it was making 500 horse or whatever. I was like, I gotta know what it is. I gotta take it a drive. And I just remember him telling me, if you can talk Kelly into letting you drive it, you can take it for a drive. And I walked up to Kelly. She was sitting by the fire, and I was like, hey, I want to take the truck for a drive.
Yeah.
I just remember her telling me, it ain't my truck. I don't know why you're asking me. So, and then we got in the truck and took it out the outer loop there on Unionville. And I remember Levon telling me how to do a 4-wheel drive launch, and it was the craziest thing I ever seen.
Yep.
The truck started filling with smoke from the tires, and ever since then I wanted one.
Yeah.
That was kind of how it went, and then that was when I started, hanging out at the shop a bunch. When I was out at the farm. And, anything I needed worked on, Coffin would help me when he was off work, and that's kind of how that all started.
Now we've had some good hanging out here after hours, but I definitely kind of miss some of the stuff we used to do over at the farm. Right. It just was different.
It was one of those things. You all hung out over there, and then once the work was done, which you never knew when it was going to be done, but once the work was done, you'd light a fire, and we'd all sit by the fire, and it was good times.
Shoot some guns or go get some food or whatever. But it was never. That was also, we quickly termed the coin on Firepunk time.
Right.
When there was a time said to go do something in the evening, it was kind of a suggested time, maybe. Still kind of is that way a lot of times, I guess. But so then you bought your own truck when you were still working at the pizza shop, right?
Yep, I was working at the pizza shop, and I had been looking, and I remember me and Kaufman, we probably went, we looked at 5 or 6 different trucks. I remember one of them we went out to Indiana and looked at. I didn't read the description on, I think it was Craigslist, didn't read the description good enough. When we got there, this truck was like, I don't know, it had like a 6-inch body lift on it and like a 12-inch lift kit. Like the thing, I could walk under the truck. We pulled in the driveway, turned around and left.
I think I kind of faintly remember that.
Yeah, and then Levon, he texted me one day and was like, hey, one of our customers has a truck for sale if you're interested. And I remember talking, it was Stefan.
That's right.
Stefan Morgan.
Yeah, okay.
And I talked to him for a little bit and decided we wanted it, or I wanted it.
And it was what, an 01?
2000.
Okay, a 2000 VP truck.
Yep. And then it had, a few mods to it, nothing crazy. Had a Firepunk street track trans in it. And, he had like an HX40 on it, 100 horsepower injectors. Nothing crazy. He when he delivered it to me, he ended up driving it out, and he got to Mechanicsburg, and the front driver wheel flew off. They had done brakes on it before he was selling it to me.
Okay.
And they didn't tighten up the lug nuts on one. And I was sitting at home getting ready to go to work at the pizza shop, and he called me and told me. And I called Matt. We went out there, and it was a nightmare, man, because we ended up, like it was, nose down. The wheel was off of it on the side of the road.
Hard to get a jack under it or anything.
We finally got a jack underneath it and started jacking it up. And as soon as we got it up high enough to put the tire on, the jack fell. And it got lodged between the track bar. And we ended up having to try to find another jack. And and then
it was a hot mess.
We finally got the wheel back on it, got it up on the trailer, had to put it in 4 low to get it up on the trailer. And took it out to the shop, took it apart. There wasn't much damage to it. We fixed it and I drove it home. But I was new to diesels, didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I remember the next morning, on the way home, it was making a noise that I didn't know what was going on. And I called Levon the next morning, and he told me, bring it over, we'll take a look and see what's going on. And I got like halfway to Firepunk, and transfer case grenaded. I never took it out of 4 low.
Oh, no way.
Grenaded a transfer case. And, good times.
Maybe a couple of RPMs there.
Yep.
That's kind of funny.
But
yeah, I would have forgot about that. But that's a good welcome to diesel trucks, I guess.
Yep.
So eventually, your truck ended up a common rail. I don't remember how long or what led up to that, or
wasn't much. I mean, we got the truck. After I bought the truck, started messing with it, and then I took it to the dirt drags at your dad's farm. Blew up a turbo, that HX40 that was on it. Levon had something laying around. We threw back on it, and then not too long after that turbo failed, and then we were trying to figure out why I kept blowing up turbos, and it came to be lack of oil pressure. So the crankcase was leaking, timing cover or the tabbet cover was leaking. I mean, there was a bunch of oil leaks on it. I remember pulling it. I wasn't even working at the shop at the time, but pulled it into the shop, and Levon let me have a bay in the corner for a week or so I could go through and do what I needed. And that's kind of what got me into working on diesels. I remember anytime something was wrong, called Levon and took it over there, and he'd be like, here's the tools.
Right.
made me do everything. So
yeah, it's like Josh and I talked about last week. We all became mechanics because of our necessity for wanting to go fast.
Right. And that was, that's what, I had never pulled a transfer case, nothing like that. I had to, Levon wasn't helping. He was like, you do it.
Yeah.
So, got to, know all that stuff, but we pulled it into the shop, and the plan was to, reseal the engine. I had ARP 2000s, a box stock board 66 turbo I was going to put on it. Well, when I went to drain the oil out to pull the front cover and stuff, we had about 3 inches in the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket. There was no oil in the motor. So we put it all back together, resealed it, and it lasted a couple months after that. And I can't remember what broke, but I mean, the engine, the cylinder walls were scored real bad. And I remember we pulled the engine out of it, and I think we got like an Interstate McBee kit and rebuilt the engine and ball honed the cylinders, as cheap as possible. And it lasted a few more months, but not much longer after that. But I had already had plans. That was back when Rick was doing his common rail swap and for DPC, and so I remember, I went and found the motor, and that was a whole headache in itself.
Yeah, right.
We went through like 3 engines, and they were all supposed to be good running engines, and all of them were burnt up.
You got some, or didn't you have like an industrial block or something at one point?
Yeah, so I got the first engine. It was supposed to be a good running engine. We brought it back to the shop, pulled valve cover, and it was shot. So I called the guy that I bought it from, and he was a super nice guy, took care of me. He ended up getting me another motor, and we swapped it back out, and then tore that one apart. I mean, I wasn't planning on tearing it apart, but it needed some work too, so I tore it apart, and the block was cracked.
Okay.
So I needed to find another block, and I can't remember who it was, but I got another block, and we went to put it all back together, and it was like an industrial block.
Yeah.
Everything was flipped. So then we had to find another block then, and then D&J built the engine. It was nothing crazy, but then we did the swap, and that was it.
And you had it making over 1,000 horsepower there for a while, didn't you? Or
dynoed 1296 on fuel.
And that would have been with one of our S300, S400 twin sets, or
it was I originally had that box stock 366, and then Austin Tate machined it out, put a 369 wheel in it, made it like one of those SXE or whatever turbos. And then I got a 80 millimeter turbo from Chris Dvorak at Midgets.
Okay.
and that's what we fabbed up and ran that for a minute until that. Now then I wanted to make more power. We ended up pulling that off, and I sold those turbos to Andrew Morrison down in at Black MB Diesel.
Gotcha.
And then that's when we put our turbo setup on it. But.
Gotcha. So, did you ever learn anything about crankcase vents with your truck?
You talking Buckeye Black?
I don't remember what it was,
So
when it was exactly. Actually, yeah, that does, yep.
It was Buckeye Blast up in Marion, up at LaRue. We took a bunch of trucks up that year, and I knew I had one of the rowdiest trucks that were there, and I was excited. But my vent tube in the front, that was when I had the VP in it though.
Okay.
But one of my vent tubes in the front was ever so slightly dripping oil.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't pass me through tech unless I fixed it.
Right.
So I pulled it back around the pits and I flipped the tube up, throw a zip tie around it, and went back and passed tech. Well, after I got done passing tech, I pulled back to the pit and it was making a noise, and Levon told me, he was like, I wouldn't run it today. And I was like, all right, cool. And let it sit, and we went on about the day, watched some racing, and then I went to go home and took off down the road and got maybe 10 minutes away from the track and lost oil pressure and pulled over the side, was wondering what the hell was going on, opened my hood, and there's oil everywhere. And then it clicked. I never cut that zip tie. So it blew my tappet cover out, hosed everything down with oil. And then Larson came, and Larson flat towed me, what was that, 45 minutes all the way back to the shop. Quick fix, but it sucked.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I remember that, just the whole thing of the big oil mess, and it's one of those things you don't really think about till you're like, duh.
Right.
That was dumb.
And there was no intentions of leaving that zip tie there. I can't talk. I forgot to cut it off because I got distracted.
Yep.
Probably pissed off because I couldn't race. But
sure enough, yeah. So you got the common rail in your truck. If I remember right, you went through an engine or two, or like.
Yep, that was when I ended up cracking a block. And
kind of when we were learning that there's some limits to 5.9 blocks, like the high torque and making 1,200 horsepower. Like, sure, it's streetable and it's a lot of fun, but
there's a breaking point.
It takes a little bit more than a stock block.
Right.
So,
and then after I cracked that block, Andrew Dvornik said he'd help me out and get it fixed. And so I went and dropped the truck off down there, and he did a lot of work for me and helped me out a lot getting an engine together. He did some powder coat work for me, and went down and picked the truck up. And that was kind of it with the second gen. I mean, raced it a couple years for ODSS and whatnot.
Yeah. What's the fastest you ever went in that one?
10:49 at 132.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, that is not slow. I think you were wanting to put a roll bar in it and never got one in it then, I guess.
I mean, it's still sitting upstairs.
Yeah.
That's kind of I want to get that truck back on the road. I mean, it's that's my truck, I miss it. But once I got the mega cab, I pulled the power plant out of that and put it in the mega cab.
You just finally got to the point where the second gen was just high maintenance enough, and it had a good bit of rust on it, and was not just the most dependable of trucks.
Right.
And I think you had it sitting for a while, or
once it was after the. Well, no, that's what it was. We got the truck back together. I can't remember what it was. Needed something, and I blew a head gasket. Doug came to town from when he was in basic training. He came to town, and he hadn't rode in it yet since I did the common rail swap.
Gotcha.
So I went out and I made a couple good hits on it and blew a head gasket.
Yeah.
And then pulled in the shop, sent the head out, and was putting it back together, and got the head bolted down, got the head torqued down. Was getting ready to do injectors, and I couldn't finish that night, so I threw my valve cover on and pushed it outside, and kind of forgot about it for a couple weeks. And it had rained, and rain ran down the cow into the valve cover and filled up number 5, number 6 cylinder.
Ugh.
So then we had to pull the motor again, and I mean it was fresh motor really. Had to pull the motor, clean up the cylinder walls, put it back together. And after that, I got it together, got the truck running good, and I had put a test turbo on it from Tate. It was like a 78 millimeter turbo or something, and put that on. Levon came, flashed the truck, and me and Levon went on a test drive. And that's a good story for you. We went out, took a test drive, went and turned around on Price Hilliard there at the end curve there. Turned around, came back around the curve. Levon told me to stop, make a hit on it. So, I dropped it in 4 and started building some boost. Let off the brake and hit the throttle. And as soon as it shifted a second and I grabbed lockup, it went boom. Grenaded a turbo, like that turbo. It grenaded that turbo.
Everywhere.
And as soon as I let off the throttle and started to pull over, red and blue lights behind me.
It's like adding insult to injury.
There was a sheriff that I didn't see come around that corner. But luckily, he came up, hey, what's going on? And the turbo blew up. And he was like, well, I'll give you an escort back. So he gave us an escort all the way back to the shop. But that was when it sat. I was just done with it. I had, gone through 3 motors, and 12 turbos. And it sat for a while, and that was when I got that Audi. So I was having fun with that for a minute. And then...
so then the Mega Cab came around. That was a truck that needed an engine, right?
Yeah. Levon knew that I was wanting a Mega Cab, and he had bought one that was wrecked and needed an engine. Offered it to me, and I started doing a lot of work, finding a bed, getting it painted, needed bumper and grill, and I had the power plant from the second gen, so we pulled that out and put in it, and that was when I switched to our compound setup.
Okay.
It's what I've had ever since.
I remember when you first put that together, you had some kind of a gremlin. All I remember is being at a race or something, and you calling Levon. Was there some cutout issue or something, or?
Yeah.
You remember?
I figured out what that was.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Should I have not asked?
The shift cable bracket would pop off. It wasn't tight.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about it. And randomly the truck just wouldn't start. And it got to the point where it didn't start. And I let it sit for a couple months. And I decided, I was like, well, it's been sitting. Let's pull the trans out. We pulled the trans out, went through it, put it back in. And when we put it back in, everything was fine. Issue was fixed.
So it ended up being a neutral safety.
No, it was the cable. The cable kept coming undone.
But how would that keep it from starting?
Because it was not in.
Okay, so it was
neutral safety. Yeah, right. But the cable is what caused it. But no, that's all that issue was.
Yeah.
And I could not.
Simple little things that make you pull your hair out when you put a project together sometimes. Right. But yeah. Well, cool. Any other truck stories? I think there was one where, I remember we were going to Cincinnati to go down to Edgewater to go racing. Yeah. And I don't really remember the details other than I know we ended up stranded beside the interstate with trans fluid. Was that one of those where, like, we didn't know it, but the people trailing us started getting trans fluid on their windows?
I knew it.
Okay.
I was following Levon. Levon was in the quad cab, and I was in my second gen behind him. And we had just that was when after I did the head studs and everything on the second gen. Mm-hmm. And we were heading down there. It was going to be the first time I raced. And we got, halfway down there, and I was getting drops on my window. And I was freaking out. I didn't know what it was, didn't know what was going on. And I called Levon, and he didn't answer. And I was like, I don't know what to do. You thought it was maybe coming from you. I thought it was coming from me. Yeah. And I just remember we were in the far left lane, and I saw Levon just dip straight over. And I'd never seen someone get over so fast in my life. He dipped over, and we all flew past him, and we had 10 trucks backing up down the highway to go back to Levon, and he blew a trans line off. Yeah. And that was when we didn't know what to do. So I think someone ended up flat towing him to a parking lot, and me and you took off in my truck and went to Lowe's to go find some fittings to fix that line. I can't remember what we came up with, some hose barbs and rubber line and hose clamps maybe, or I almost thought there was maybe something more creative than that, but I can't. Didn't we need to figure out how to get it to
like how to adapt it to the hard line,
Yeah.
or I don't know what we came up with.
We got
but,
some sort of compression fitting they had.
And
put it on, and then had barb fittings coming out of the trans. But the funny thing about that was after we got it fixed, we went down and raced on it.
Right.
I remember when I first started working here, before you guys went to, you were getting hitch truck ready for DPC, and we forgot we did that.
We hadn't properly fixed it yet.
It was still like that, like a year later. Yeah.
It's funny how temporary things around here sometimes aren't so temporary.
Right.
We had a light upstairs that in our break area, we didn't have enough light, so we put this light up with this, I don't know, crappy wire that we had. I'm not even sure if we had thrown a plug on the end of it, but it was all kind of roughly wrapped up in the ceiling, and it was supposed to be a temporary thing till we got the electrician over, and I think that thing ended up being up there for 4 years or so until just recently.
Yeah.
And then Josh has this dart gun that he likes to shoot around the shop, and it's got some sharp little arrows, and I think, wasn't there a bird in the shop?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was a bird in the shop he was shooting at, and he ended up shooting right into that wire. And when they took that wire down, the electrician tested that dart, and it was hot. So we had a hot dart in a temporary wire for a pretty long time. But sometimes we have the best of intentions and don't quite get around to getting things fixed up as soon as we should. But
Right.
yeah, good stuff. So now you're managing the trans room. Learned a few things over the years, I'd say, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there for a while you did nothing but assemble 48s, and I don't know. Do you still keep a track of how many transmissions you've built? What number are you on? Or
it kind of faded into me and Cameron's number.
Okay.
And kind of grew together, but I think we're 2,800 is the last sheet that I filled. So.
That's crazy.
And
does that include repairs, or is that just new builds?
Just new builds. No repairs, no 68s.
Okay.
And it's just 47, 48 new builds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. It'd be so 2,800 over, 8 years? I don't know, I'd have to do that math, but
I can't do that.
Yeah. There would have been a day I think I could have done it pretty quick. I probably can still, just not near as quick as I used to. But yeah, that's cool.
And right now I think we're averaging about 20 trans a week. So
okay.
With what we got.
Yeah. It's also crazy, like just looking back at where we came from. I mean, just what the shop was like when you started. There was, what was there, 4 or 5 of us maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that. And now we're at, I don't know, lower 20s somewhere.
Right. But it's also like when we first started, I remember like we had one table in the trans room and we built maybe 2 a week.
Yeah.
And
we were probably just barely graduated from that MDF pile of junk table that we used to have.
When I started, we just got the build table that we had.
Yeah. And that's our small 68 build table now. We have, what do we have? 2 other big tables, and plus a valve body table. So it's definitely changed quite a bit. I look back at pictures of the trans room, which was just like an area, like it didn't feel like a room before the upstairs was there. Like it was really kind of weird.
I was going through some pictures not too long ago, and I saw one where we had that pallet that we made a table out of to paint on, and it was like just looking at that. It was some good stuff.
Yep. So talking food, you cook quite a bit and still enjoy it. What are some of your favorite things to cook? Or I don't know. You have any good Firepunk food stories, I guess? Or I mean, you've cooked some stuff for a couple of our races or whatever. Like
can't go wrong with doing a boil. Using Danny seasoning and or the chorizo tacos.
Chorizo tacos, yep, those are pretty hard to go wrong with.
Cooked a lot of food.
Yeah.
We cooked a lot of food at races.
Yep.
We've done a couple boils here at the shop. We need to do another one soon.
Yeah. I still got a pretty big tub of seasoning at home. I use it just as, I don't know, popcorn seasoning or throw some in my pasta or
I use it on everything.
Use it on a little bit of everything. Danny keeps telling me I need to try it on eggs, and I can't say that I've done that yet, but I'm guessing that'd probably be pretty good.
I bet it'd be good.
I don't eat just a ton of eggs.
I don't either.
It's pretty good stuff. So
I tell you what, I do. I use that seasoning and I make like a Cajun butter with that and some brown sugar. And you put that on corn. I'll make Cajun corn all the time. It's good
that's
stuff.
a good idea. I like that. So yeah, if any of you guys like Cajun food or Southern boils, I don't know. I might not be the greatest of judges for Southern food or Cajun, but as far as boils go, I have yet to find a boil quite as good as Danny Elmore's stuff. When I was first introduced to anything of the sort was TS.
Yep, me too.
I'm guessing 2008, 2009. I don't know. I just remember going down there, and it was I think it was the last year that they had the big like Friday night party at TS, and I was still very green behind the ears and kind of barely. I mean, it was when competition diesel was a big thing, and I didn't really feel like I was a part of the in-group, like barely knew people. But we went down there, and Danny had done a crawfish boil, and I had never heard of the likes. I mean, looking at these mud bugs, I was like, what do you do with these things? Like, and you know, they showed you how to break them apart and peel the tail, and their rule was you can't eat the tail unless you suck the head.
Right.
So you gotta close your eyes and not look at what you're.
And as crazy as it is, that's the best part.
Oh, there's a ton of good flavor there if you just don't look at the guts of the crawfish.
Right.
But you know, it's all cooked, so whatever, no big deal.
Right.
But no, I just remember like got started on these things. I'm like, man, these things are pretty good. And then they're all standing around there going like, oh, you think they burn going down? You should wait till they come out. And I was like, well, maybe I should, you know, dial it back a little bit on this. But I never had any horrible experience with that side of things. But yeah, it was a whole new thing. But I definitely will eat some crawfish any chance I get.
Yeah, definitely.
I maybe not, I mean, I enjoy the crawfish, but I enjoy the other stuff with it just as much. I mean, Daniel put all kinds of good, I mean, he started putting ham in there, and that's delicious.
I always put ham and mushrooms. And
the corn, like, man, it sucks up all the flavor, but it also sucks up all the heat.
Yeah, the corn's hot.
Yeah, eating, I mean, I would have never thought that I'd just bite into a garlic clove, but even that's pretty good. So, yeah, lots of good food. We definitely enjoy food around here.
Yeah, we do.
So, well, cool. It's been good chatting with you, and hopefully everyone enjoyed this, and we didn't go too far off the beaten path, I guess. But if you don't like it, I guess you had the opportunity to turn it off and quit watching. But we will wrap it up for today, and we'll catch you all on next week's episode of Firepunk Friday.